Guess what? You have a big date coming up, and no, it's not Thanksgiving itself. It's actually the week before Thanksgiving. It's a once in a year opportunity for you to be able to fix your credit like nobody's business. In this video, I'm going to share with you exactly what you need to know, when you need to send some dispute letters out, and why this is the best time of year. It happens once a year when you can actually get the most stuff chiseled off your credit reports. So I have a lot to cover in a very short period of time. Let's get into it. So every single year I like to do something called the Holiday Blitz, and I'd already produced that video. It's already gone out, but I gave you a step that a lot of people missed because you missed the dates. And so I wanted to reiterate that this is literally a once a year thing that you can do to be able to chisel the most negative accounts off your credit reports. It's during this holiday season, starting with the week before Thanksgiving. And so I don't want you to miss it. And that's why I'm doing another video to reiterate the dates, to be able to reiterate the steps, because they have slightly changed if you missed the first Holiday Blitz video I just did. And I want to be able to get you on track. So then that way you can take advantage of this once a year opportunity to be able to get the most possible negative accounts off your credit reports. Now, first and foremost, let's quickly cover exactly why this once a year opportunity works so well and why now is a really good time to dispute all your negative accounts above all other times of the year. So what ends up happening is that the three credit reporting bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, are minimally staffed. They're minimally staffed through most of the year, and certain credit bureaus, like Equifax, for example, is less staffed than the other two, TransUnion and Experian. But during the holiday season, not only are they understaffed, but let's face it, the people that don't have tenure in the company, the ones that are the newbies or the newer employees, they're the ones who are stuck on staff. They don't know that much. And you have the older employees, the ones that do have tenure and vacation time, they take time off. So then you have the newbie employees sitting around, probably not fully aware of what they're supposed to be doing, not even wanting to do their jobs because, of course, 'tis the season, right? Most people simply want to sit around and do next to nothing. They want to play on their phone. They want to scroll on different social media sites, and they want to do as little as possible, especially those that are disgruntled that they don't have any earned time off. And so you're going to find that this is a really good critical time to start what we call the ticking time clock. Okay? So let's talk about the ticking time clock and how you're going to have that work in your favor. So let's talk about some upcoming dates. Now, as you know, Thanksgiving is going to be on the 27th of November this year. And so backtracking 1 week in advance, that would be the 19th. This is what I'd like you to do. And I'm going to talk through the steps, and I'm going to talk to you about why you're going to be doing these steps. So let's talk about the steps first. Now, for those of you that watched my last Holiday Blitz video, and I talked about the empty envelopes going out to creditors, we're skipping that step altogether. You missed it. Too bad. It's over with now. But the good news is, you don't have to miss this opportunity completely, because there's still a lot of stuff you can get taken off your credit reports if you start doing this now. So if you did miss the first step in my first Holiday Blitz video for the season, that's fine. I'm going to essentially do a restart, deliver the information as it's relevant now for these dates right now. Okay, so forget about the other video. Let's talk about this one and what you need to be doing now. So first and foremost, you need to go to my website. It's either getdisputeletters.com or secretcreditletters.com. Go to one of those two sites. The reason I have two of the same site is because sometimes people complain that they can't get to the first one. So I have a second one, which is a mirror image of the first one, which is secretcreditletters.com. So what you want to do is you want to look for what we call the 609-611 letter. That's our dispute letter, okay? In fact, I have it right here. It looks kind of like this, okay? Now you're going to notice in this letter that all three credit reporting bureaus are listed. I thought it kind of went without saying, but some of you in my school system have asked me direct message whether or not you should leave all three credit reporting bureaus. Come on, people. You need to delete the credit bureaus that you're not going to be sending a letter to and just leave the one credit bureau that you are sending the letter to, and then you wash, rinse, repeat throughout all three credit reporting bureaus. So obviously you don't leave on all three and then circle the one you want. That's kind of, that's kind of lame. So don't do that, okay? And so essentially what you do is you put your information here. You can put the date, which is going to be either November 19th, which is better, and then November 20th, which is, you know, not as great, but it's still better. It's still good. We want to be able to get these letters in the hands of each credit reporting bureau before Thanksgiving. I don't care if it's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, but we want them to receive this before Thanksgiving. Okay, very important. All right. So even if you're watching this video and say it's, you know, maybe the 24th, for example, or whatever the Monday is before Thanksgiving. I don't know. I can't backtrack in my head that well. The Monday before Thanksgiving, you can still get away with doing this as long as you're willing to spend the extra money to send a priority envelope out that's trackable, not signature confirmation, folks, not anything that requires a signature, but this is what I'm aiming for. So take a look at this cardboard envelope you can get at the post office, right? So if you're sending it late, like the Monday before Thanksgiving, you essentially want this to go overnight, all right? And it needs to go, again, trackable, not signature confirmation. We don't want to send out these little cards on the back or anything like that to make somebody sign, because they might very well sit in a box and, you know, a post office box without getting a signature from somebody for a week because it's the holidays. So don't do that to yourself. You want the ticking time clock to start the moment it hits their P.O. box, okay? So even if they leave it there for 2 weeks, who cares? As long as you get that notification from the U.S. Postal Service that it was received and sitting in their box on X date before Thanksgiving, okay? And so what we want it to look like, so if you don't want to spend the extra money on priority, then get these out in the mail maybe by Wednesday before the week before Thanksgiving. And then you would send this, not certified, but you would actually send this trackable, and you could send a regular envelope. It doesn't have to be in a big 9x12 envelope. People ask me that all the time. They're like, Monica, you always show these demos with the big envelope. Do I have to send it in the big envelope? No, you don't. You can send it in a regular number 10 business size envelope. It doesn't have to be this big. This is for demonstration purposes, okay? So you want it to be trackable. In case I didn't say that enough, because inevitably somebody always asks, but Monica, what if I got to wait? Should I send a signature? No signature. Trackable. That's it. No green card, just trackable. The reason we want it trackable is, again, we want the ticking time clock to start the minute it hits in their post office box. And again, we don't care if it takes them 2 weeks to get it. The longer it takes, the better, okay? So we want to make sure now, very, 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 very important, because people always ask me this too, because I don't listen to instructions. This is why you should always, when you're listening to my videos, have a pad of paper and a pen, take some notes. So when you're sending this letter, there's some critical components that you need to know. So again, you can get this letter at getdisputeletters.com or secretcreditletters.com. You're looking for the 609-611 letter, and this is your dispute letter. So first and foremost, the date you're mailing it out, which again needs to be the Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday before Thanksgiving, okay? Obviously your full name, or the name as it appears on your credit reports, in your current address as it appears on your credit reports, okay? You also want your current cell phone number, all right? This is very important, because if they need to communicate with you, or if at some point in time during this process you need to call them, because yes, I do have students that call them to delete certain things. They call directly into Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion. And believe it or not, listen to me very carefully, if after you submit your disputes and you're not getting anywhere during the Holiday Blitz season, which starts before Thanksgiving and ends roughly about a week or so after Christmas, New Year's area, somewhere in there, you're going to have the same disgruntled staff there. They're wet behind the ears. They don't know what the heck they're doing. You could very well call in during any period, preferably after the 30 calendar days of this expires, to have stuff taken off. Yes, and they will sit there and they'll take it off your credit if you call in. But here's the deal. Your information needs to be correct. Now, I know I'm getting ahead of myself because I get so excited about all this, because this is, like I said, a once-a-year opportunity. Like some of you might be watching this video in March, because it happens every year. And you're like, Monica, is it still too late to do the Holiday Blitz? Well, yeah, obviously it is. And should I wait till the next one? No, you shouldn't. You should start fixing your credit no matter where you are in the calendar, okay? Don't wait. If you're in March, you don't want to wait till November. You want to start fixing it now, because you can do a lot of progress between March and November without waiting for the Holiday Blitz. But hopefully you're listening to this before Thanksgiving, okay? And so let's be clear on what we're sending. So let me center myself, because I want to be very clear. Get yourself your pad of paper and your pen, because you're going to take notes. You're going to go to getdisputeletters.com or secretcreditletters.com. You're going to look for the 609 letter, which is this letter, and you're going to download it. Okay? That's the first step. Download the letter. Okay? The second step I'd like you to do is go to 1001fonts.com. And what I'd like you to do is find some handwriting or some handwritten fonts. Because whenever you're dealing with a dispute letter, you're always going to have better progress when it looks like it's handwriting. Now, it has to look like legit handwriting, not something that doesn't look like handwriting, but it looks like some hard to read cursive. It needs to be legible. So make sure that it's legible handwriting. And I found that handwriting definitely can get more off your credit, because what ends up happening is a lot of these letters are fed into a system where somebody's feeding these letters into a robotic system, and then through the e-Oscar system, basically it takes all your data and information that you provided here on this letter and puts it into the system, and essentially the computer is doing all the work on the disputing process, which is why most of you probably find that you're not making much progress when it comes to disputing, because you have one computer talking to another computer. So basically, let me give you a scenario. Computer A from, say, Experian is talking to a large, creditor, and is basically putting in a code saying information incorrect, whatever that digit code is. And then it's bouncing that off into, say, the creditor. Say the creditor is Capital One. And Capital One already has their system set up to respond back with its own code saying, oh no, that's correct. That's his or her information is correct as you reported it in that letter. It's correct. And then all of this happens within like 5 seconds, okay? So then that's when you get the dreaded update notification from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion showing that the account updated. They're no longer interested in doing any kind of disputing or any kind of investigation as they're required to by federal law. No matter how many times you ask them to investigate, they're just not going to do it anymore. And it's basically going to stick on your credit like Gorilla Glue at that point. Okay, not really, but at this point, when you get the dreaded update, it kind of does. Okay, so to avoid that, what we want to do is this is the critical part. Like, people want to whip this stuff together and do this within like 5 minutes and whip these letters together and get them out without doing a preparedness project. You want this to be a project that maybe even takes you an hour to prepare these letters, because you want to make sure that they're done right. And let me give you a little bit of a tip, okay? I'm going to whisper this. Not that this is high-tech secret stuff, but if you really want to make progress with getting stuff off your credit and you want to do this right, especially with this Holiday Blitz that, again, comes around once a year, and you're willing to take the time to do this and you have decent handwriting, handwrite it out yourself, okay? Handwrite it out yourself. Now, if your handwriting like mine is atrocious and sucks, like people tell me all the time I should be a doctor or should have been a doctor because nobody can read my handwriting, if that's the case, then you probably want to not handwrite it out. And by handwriting, it could be cursive. It could also be, block writing. Whatever is your handwriting is perfect as long as it's legible. And if you're willing to handwrite out, you're literally handwriting out 3 letters. That's all you're handwriting out. And you can do it while you're watching a TV show, okay? And if you're willing to do it and you have decent handwriting that's legible, then I recommend you do it that way. All right, do it that way rather than trying to do the discombobulated, let's find some handwriting fonts from 1001fonts.com. Let's see which ones are legible and not. Your handwriting fonts are going to give you the best advantage, okay? So I recommend, out of all other times of the year when you're in the disputing process, now is the time to get yourself even a yellow pad of paper, because it's harder for the e-Oscar system to read yellow paper, like the yellow legal paper. If you can get yourself a pad of, the yellow legal size paper, get that, because it's harder for the system to read, which means now, again, the reason we want the system to not read our letter and we want an individual to read it for us on behalf of the credit reporting bureaus is because they, meaning the human being that's sitting there all disgruntled because they're not able to go on vacation with the rest of their cohorts at Experian, for example, they're sitting there and they're just going to type, and they're going to, in many cases, just start removing stuff off your credit as per your request, okay? Because if the system can't read it, they have to read it, and they have to do the work physically, just like the old days back in the day before the computers took over, all right? So if you can take the time, I strongly urge it, because if you're thinking in terms of, Monica, that just sucks that I got to sit there and I got to write out these letters. Yeah, say it takes you an hour. So what? An hour to progress your efforts and your success in disputing, so that ultimately these things, these negative accounts, can be removed off your credit or favorably updated for you. Yes, it's worth an hour. And like I said, watch a movie or binge watch something on Netflix while you're doing it. So then that way, you can get the very best advantage of getting the stuff off your credit. So let's talk about the stuff to be removed. Some of you have not pulled your credit lately. And if you have not pulled your credit, I strongly urge you to pay the $39.99 to Experian, get all 3 credit reports, get all 3 FICO scores at once, and you can at least see what's on each individual credit report, because what you end up writing as a letter to Experian might be slightly different to TransUnion and Equifax, because maybe some of the same accounts are not showing up. Maybe some of the same other information is not showing up that you're going to be disputing. Now, let me be very clear about what's going to be happening in this letter that's different than the rest of the year. So typically what I have people do, and you could still do it this way, by the way. You can still break up the letters if you really want to. But this is the only license that I give you during the year where you can include your personal information updates and hard inquiry request deletes in one letter. Normally, I want to see a separate letter for updating your personal information, like your personal address, phone number, etc., and a different letter for your disputes and a different letter for disputing your hard inquiries. Typically, I like to see 3 different letters to each credit reporting bureau, which would be a total of 9 letters. However, this one time a year, I'm giving you a license to dispute everything and update everything in one letter. Okay, so it's going to be slightly different than the 609 that you get when you download it from my website. It's going to be different. You're going to have to add a couple of things, okay? So here's where the work is going to begin. It's a nice template that I provide for you, because we cite the federal statutes and so forth, which are really, really critical when dealing with the credit reporting bureaus. But what I recommend that you do is I recommend that you start the letter off by saying, my name is so-and-so, and I noticed that there's a couple of things that are not accurate when it comes to my personal information being reported on my credit report with you, such as, fill in the blank. You're showing that I've lived at this address, blah, 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 blah. However, I've never lived at that address. Or it's showing that I lived at this other address, blah, 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 but it's been 15 years since I've lived there, and by law you have to delete that. Or it's showing that I have a middle initial in my name as reported on my report, but I never use my middle name, or I never use my middle initial. And by the way, I want to make sure that you have my current cell phone number on file in the event that we need to communicate, and therefore my personal cell phone number is blah, 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 blah. Okay, you want to make sure that they have your personal cell phone number in case later, as I mentioned before, you do want to call them. You always have to wait your 30 calendar days. So this is going to be probably toward, say, Christmas. You might call somebody on the phone and say, hey, I put in a dispute to dispute this hard inquiry, for example. Can you check on this dispute for me? And they're going to say, well, what is your cell phone number? We need to verify your identity. And they might actually send you a code, and you need to tell them what the code is and the whole 9 yards. And if they don't have your cell phone number on file, guess what? None of this is going to be happening for you. None of this extra stuff that you can potentially get deleted by having a phone call conversation, which again, by the way, the only time I would even recommend you even venture down that path with an actual phone call to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion is during the Holiday Blitz, because again, we're dealing with short-staffed people that don't want to be there, and people that actually will do their job because they're asked to do their job, and they have nothing better to do, really. So the only way that that's going to happen is if they have your current cell phone number on file, okay? If they don't, and you don't know what they have on file, because on your credit reports that you're looking at, they don't actually show or identify your cell phone number that they have on file, all right? So that's the first paragraph. Your opening paragraph is updating any information. Now, if you want to skip that part, you can, but in the very least, you should say, by the way, if you need to get a hold of me or you have any questions about my request, please make sure that you have my current cell phone number on file, which is fill in the blank. Okay, if that's the only thing you want to do as far as updating personal information, because maybe you've already done that step already, fine. Just have that first open liner that updates your cell phone number, or at least gives them your cell phone number so they have that for their system. Then next, you're going to basically stay in step with exactly what this letter says. Now remember, you're going to have the date, which is going to be ideally the Thursday before Thanksgiving, so a week behind the actual Thanksgiving date. Then you're going to have the name as it shows on your credit report, or the way you'd like it to be on your credit report, your current address. If you've lived at your current address less than 2 years, then you want to have the address that you had prior. So you could say prior address. And then you only want to use one, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, whatever one you're actually addressing and sending the letter to. That's the only one you put there, folks, not all three. You just put the one, right? And then you put formal dispute and verification request under the FCRA law, and you actually have the law that you cite right there. And then attention legal department, okay? And then you follow suit with exactly what I said with your open liner paragraph. Again, if the only thing you want to talk about is you're making sure they have the right cell phone number, that's great, do that. And then you go into the disputing process. And what you want to basically have in every dispute is the name of the creditor. This is very important. Name of the creditor, amount that they claim you owe, okay? And the partial account number. People ask me this all the time, well, Monica, what if I don't know the whole account number? You don't want to know the whole account number, because if later on you want to say that this account is not mine, how are you going to know what the whole account number is if the account truly is not yours? That's not possible, right? You want to use the partial account number as shown on your credit reports with all the X's and everything else exactly how it shows. And then you're going to have a reason for dispute. The reason for dispute, if it's truly not your account, because if it's not your account, you just basically say, not my account. Okay, and then eOscar will give it the appropriate digit code automatically based on not mine. Now, if it's something you don't want to admit to that's yours, but you know it's yours, but you want to leave that open for debate later, you can. You can simply put information incorrect, okay? So that is the dispute reason, because people always ask me, well, Monica, I don't know what the dispute reason is. Information is incorrect, or information reported is incorrect and needs to be investigated, okay? That's your reason for dispute. Unless it's, flat across the board, not yours, then it's going to be not my account, period. Now, if you had, like, say, for example, a ID theft situation where you actually filed a police report with your local police department as well as with the FTC, then as well as with consumerfinance.gov, then you can say not mine, identity theft, and then please see attached ID theft claim, which would be a copy of your ID theft reports, okay? But if that doesn't apply to you, then you just basically say information is incorrect, needs to be investigated as per federal law, or just information is incorrect. And so you basically have to also cite all these statutes too. And, there's that little squiggly wiggly thing that goes in between some of the statutes and some of the, numbers of the statutes. You have to have all that correct. And then in the very end, you're going to basically write your name and then you're going to sign it. But I don't like ever using my legal signature on this kind of stuff, especially if you're ever communicating with a creditor. Never, ever put your legal signature there. But for the credit bureaus, it's not as I think, risky to put your legal signature there, but I would just put your initials or whatever you do for initials legally and not a full signature, okay? Now, this is also very important. Many times you will have these credit reporting bureaus because they want to buy time, because they know that they're being flooded with people who are disputing these accounts, especially through the Holiday Blitz because of videos like this, for example. They want to buy themselves some time, kick the can down the road, and so they always have these form letters that are ready to be sent out to you that basically say, oh, we don't believe this is you. We don't believe that this is a legitimate claim for a dispute, so you need to show proof of your identity. So to nip that in the bud, head it off at the pass before it even happens, what you need to do is make sure you always send in a copy of your driver's license, state-issued ID, or current passport, okay? And you need a copy of 2 recent utility bills. I like the last 30 days, but the last 60 days will probably work, but the last 30 days is always better. If somebody pays your bills for you, like say they pay the light bill for you, then the second best thing would be a credit card statement, insurance bill, for example, a car payment statement, something along those lines. I would just make sure that you only give them page 1, obviously, and then blank out or Sharpie over, any account number information. Okay, you just want the page that shows your name and current address. If you don't currently have your current address on your state issued ID or your current driver's license, then you need to take your little butt down to the DMV and update that, because you're already in violation of your state law. Most states require you, upon moving, to inform them within about 10 to 14 business days that you've moved. And in the mere fact that you still have a driver's license or state issued ID with an old address, that means you're in violation of your state law anyway. So go down to the DMV or Secretary of State or whatever it is that's called in your state and update that, okay? Because that's important and imperative. And if you don't have time for that because of the urgency of the dates that we have ahead, then if you have a passport, that'll work, because passports don't have your current address on it, okay? But you need to have current ID, not expired, current, ideally with your current, home address, and two proofs, I guess, of where you live, all right? Utilities, some kind of statement of some kind, okay? Bank statement, whatever you have, just blank out that account number. Send all of that with your handwritten letter. And by the way, again, normally I like this to be in a different letter, but if you want to dispute the different hard inquiries that are also on your credit reports, you can do that in each letter. Now, mind you, let me be very clear about something, because people think that all 3 credit reporting bureaus report the same stuff. They do not. You're going to find that there's some accounts on Experian that are not on Equifax. You're going to notice that there's some hard inquiries that are on TransUnion that are not on the other 2. So you need to be able to match exactly what accounts, including hard inquiries, that you're actually disputing per credit report. You can't just send the same exact letter to every single one of the credit reporting bureaus, because they're going to be like, TransUnion will be like, oh, she's disputing, a Capital One hard inquiry, but we don't even see a hard inquiry from Capital One or whatever, because the hard inquiry is on, say, Experian. So make sure that the information that you're disputing actually matches each credit report, which will be different, all right? So let's talk about the actual accounts to dispute themselves. Now, typically I like to see that you focus on closed accounts first, but we don't have a lot of time here, okay? So again, this is going to be a special license, a Monica Maine license during only the Holiday Blitz blowout area of the calendar, that I will allow you to get away with this. And so in addition to disputing personal information in the same letter, as well as your actual accounts, as well as your hard inquiries, you can also dispute at the same time not only closed accounts, but also open accounts. Now, only the open accounts that you're, say, disputing lates, for example, or delinquencies. So again, normally I would have you wait until you can get those closed accounts off, especially those collection accounts, which typically are the easiest to have removed. But again, this time of the year only, I'm giving you the license to dispute everything that's negative, like literally everything that's negative, except whenever you're disputing lates, you're going to have a different dispute reason. The dispute reason has never been late. That is your dispute reason. Never been late, okay? The other disputes for closed accounts are going to be information is incorrect and needs to be investigated as per federal law, or just information is incorrect, right? That's the dispute reason for the closed accounts. So you list everything that's slowing down or laboring down on your FICO score. And oh, by the way, the only closed accounts that are positive that you might want to also consider disputing are those that are like, for example, those short payment types of loans like Klarna or Affirm. Those are damaging people's credit. And so you might have a decent credit payment history with, say, Affirm. Say you have like 2 or 3 different Affirms that you opened up with different merchants, and you have a decent FICO score or a decent credit rating from the payments that you made. Say it was a 3 or 4 payment type of thing, or a 6 payment thing, or a 12 payment thing. Have those removed, because they're such short-term loans that they're actually damaging and pulling down your FICO score. So I would actually dispute those too, even if they're positive. Dispute anything that's Klarna, dispute anything that's Affirm, okay? So dispute those even if they are in positive standing. And I would just say information incorrect, and that's how I would dispute it. Or you can even go so far as to say not my account, because what's going to happen is the information is going to go to Affirm or Klarna, and they're such large companies that they're not going to be interested. I mean, as long as it's a closed account that's been in good standing, there in more than one case, and more than several cases actually I've seen, they do not actually respond to those disputes, which means that those Klarna and those affirm accounts will be taken off as if they never existed, which is what you want because, again, even if it's good credit history, it's weighing down your FICO score because it's such a short-term loan, okay? So get rid of that stuff. All right, so let's recap what we're doing here. On the Thursday or Friday before Thanksgiving, all right? So let's talk about it. We are going to be sending, ideally, priority envelope with a trackable little thingy-mabobber here. It's green. You get it at the U.S. Postal Service if you stand in line. Or you can use a company like stamps.com, use their free trial, print out a label, make sure it is trackable, not signature confirmation, and you do not, I repeat, do not want a certified card, which is this. You don't want this. You don't want somebody to have to sign for anything. And in this envelope, the Thursday or Friday, the week before Thanksgiving, you're going to be sending the following. This letter, handwritten, a copy of your current ID or state issued, it could be, or a driver's license or a passport. It has to be current. And if your ID does not show your current, address, try to go get it updated as quickly as possible. I know here in the state of Florida, you go to the DMV and they can print a new driver's license right then and there. However, when I lived in California, it was like a 3-week ordeal to wait for a driver's license in the mail. So it just depends on where you are and how fast you can actually get a new driver's license with your updated address on it. You also want to have a copy of 2 utility bills that are recent within the last 30 days or equivalent, which could be a bank statement. It could be car payment statement, credit card statement, insurance statement, cell phone bill statement, something like that shows your address. Blank out your critical account information and just show page 1 that shows your name and current address. You need 2 of those, okay? 2 of those with your ID, okay? And that goes with the letter. If you have an identity theft claim, make sure that you include a copy of your local Yoco police report, as well as the FTC report if you file one of those, as well as the consumerfinance.gov report to show that you have filed with all these different jurisdictions. And of course, the reason for dispute will be different. It'll be not my account. However, I caution you, you don't want to do that with open revolving accounts because what will end up happening is that they will close those accounts because you're saying that those accounts are not yours. So you only want to focus on the ID theft claim with closed accounts. Otherwise, they will take away your open accounts if you, in fact, try to dispute those with an identity theft claim, okay? The only time you're going to want to, basically go after them about an open revolving account with a delinquency or anything that's showing up negative is basically by saying, I've never been late. And that's the only dispute reason you're going to have for open revolving accounts. You're not going to say anything else for those, okay? So you put it all in the mail. So basically you have this and all your other stuff that I talked about. You put it here. Like I said, you go to the post office, get the little green tracking thing. Make sure that you keep, everything in order as far as all your tracking information. Make sure that you keep file folders for all of your letters and so forth. A copy of everything that went in here should go is in a copy in a file folder, one for Experian, one for Equifax, one for TransUnion, as well as a copy of the tear-off piece that they're going to give you. The U.S. Postal Service is going to give you a tear-off piece that shows the actual tracking that can be tracked on USPS.com. And you want to basically make sure that you keep all of that information in each, individual folder. And then what happens is from the day that TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian receives this, which will be, ta-da, the week of Thanksgiving, but before Thanksgiving, that is when the calendar days will start, okay? You get 30 calendar days of an investigation. And like I said, this is why we don't care if it's sitting in a P.O. box for 2 weeks, because people are like, well, what if it sits in a P.O. box for 2 weeks? Well, good, because then that means by the time somebody gets off their ass, rolls down to the post office and grabs your letter, then they've already wasted 2 weeks in the investigation, which means that there's a higher chance for them to just quickly and swiftly delete it off because they've already been negligent in the investigation process, okay? So now what happens? 30 calendar days goes by. What does that give us? So say we got these in the mail on the 19th, okay? And say maybe the credit reporting bureaus get it by the Saturday. Now, Saturday and Sunday does count. Of course, Sunday nothing will be delivered, but Saturday does count because that is considered a calendar day. It doesn't have to be a business day. It's a calendar day. So say they receive these on the 21st, okay? That means that the calendar days technically will start on the 22nd, which is perfect because think about what happens, I don't know, say December 22nd. Where are we at? Well, we're right before Christmas. Hello, right before ho, ho, ho. Okay. So the cool thing is now we have time for a second round of disputes. Now, this second round of disputes that are going to be sent out on the 23rd, and again, if we can get these overnight over there on the 21st or on the 24th, for example, or even better, just send these out, these cardboard priority envelopes on the 23rd, chances or to 22nd rather, the chances are it'll hit their PO box by the 24th. Okay. So here's what I would do. All right. This is really important. If you can get these for the Thanksgiving Blitz in the mail by the 18th or 19th, then that means that these will hit their PO box by the 21st. Okay, that means that on the 22nd of December, you can send them something called a MOVE letter, an MOV letter. Now, the MOV letter does not have to be in handwriting. So I repeat, the MOVE letter that's sent on the 22nd of December does not have to be in handwriting. It can just be a professional Times New Roman, Arial, whatever font you like, as long as it's legible and professional looking. And the MOVE letter is called the method of verification letter. And by law, upon request, they do have to provide information about how they conducted their investigation when you demand it. Okay, so that's the letter for all the stuff that did not fall off your credit reports. And by the way, there will be a lot of accounts that will favorably update or even delete altogether, believe it or not, during this Holiday Blitz season. But there'll be some stuff, some lingering hanger-oners that just do not want to come off, in which case you need a method of verification letter, which is also available at getdisputeletters.com or secretcreditletters.com. And you're looking for the MOVE or method of verification letter. And again, does not have to be handwritten. It could just basically be a print off from the computer. And you're basically demanding how they completed their investigation. You will cite whatever accounts are still lingering that you don't want there anymore, and you'll list those. You could also list the hard inquiries that didn't fall off as well. And then you have that letter that goes out, hopefully hits their PO box by December 24th. Okay. The reason I'm smiling is because now we waste a whole bunch of other days where they are definitely on a super skeleton crew from right before Christmas all the way through till about maybe the mid full first week of January. So again, they're blowing out their clock, which means by the time anybody actually sits down at their desk to start doing any work, they've already blown through the process, and they're just like, oh shoot, we gotta get together and we gotta start, moving through this stuff. Now remember, anytime you have any correspondence with the credit reporting bureaus, always include a copy of your current driver's license, state ID card, or passport, and those 2 utility bills or equivalent. Always, 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 whenever you're communicating with the credit reporting bureaus, okay? Always, all right? Because you never want them to kick the can down the road by giving you a form letter that says, oh, we don't believe it's you. You didn't prove that this is you. So you don't want that at all. Now, for those of you that want to know why you don't do this online, because online disputing sucks. Online disputing is ineffective, and online disputing almost never works because you have immediately the e-Oscar method, computer talking to another computer, already in the mix from second one, okay? We don't want that. We want to take the computer out of the mix and have a human being touch our paper and process our stuff. And that's why we do it by way of mail, because it's much more effective and it'll get more stuff off your credit reports. So one other thing I wanted to touch upon that I recommend that you do at the, I guess you could say at the very same time, is if you want to have hard inquiries, which is what we call the low-hanging fruit, which is something that can drastically increase your FICO score by a lot of points. Like the worse your credit is, the more they ding you for a hard inquiry. Like they could be dinging you up to 8 points per hard inquiry, okay? So that means if you have 10 hard inquiries on your credit report, that could be dinging you about 80 points that you can get back. So remember in this first letter, where the heck is my letter here? Oh, it's in the envelope. Okay, so remember with this first letter that we hand wrote out, and we actually did do a dispute on the hard inquiries as well. So after you send this letter out right before Thanksgiving, one of the other things you can do is also send letters out to each of the creditors that are showing in the hard inquiry section, and their address is going to be listed there. You don't have to send them a handwritten letter. You can just send them a form letter and basically dispute those hard inquiries, okay? And you could just say, I did not authorize this. I did not give you something called permissible purpose as per federal law to pull my credit. And most of them will actually take off your hard inquiries upon request. So after you send out these letters right before Thanksgiving. What you also want to do at the same time is kind of do the double prong success method, which is to send dispute letters directly to any and all creditors that are showing in the hard inquiry sections of your credit report and say, you did not have permissible purpose to pull my credit. I don't recognize this. You need to take it off immediately. And many times they will just simply take it off just because they don't want to deal with you, okay? So you don't send a copy of your driver's license. You don't send any utility bills to them. And you never for your creditors actually sign your legal name on the letter. Just basically scribble, some initials and off you go, okay? These don't have to be handwritten. You should send them trackable mail. They don't have to be signature confirmation. You don't even have to send, if you don't want to, because these are really expensive. You don't actually want to send this to them where they're required to, sign anything, because you want the time clock to be ticking for them too. So again, just trackable mail. You don't have to even spend the extra money on this. You could just simply go down to the post office and get some trackable number 10 envelopes if you want. So again, you're just sending a form letter to each of the creditors showing in the hard inquiry section of each credit report, saying that they did not have permissible purpose to pull your credit, and you want the hard inquiry removed immediately. Send a trackable mail without a driver's license, without 2 forms of proof of where you live, and without using your legal signature. Okay, just scribble, that's it. Okay. And you'll notice that even just getting those hard inquiries off will drastically and dramatically raise your FICO score if you have a lot of hard inquiries. Like, I look at credit reports a lot, especially with free audits, which, by the way, if you want a free audit, simply go to school.com/Monica Main. Once you are in, which takes typically about 24 hours, you can go ahead and go to Classroom, look for the Audit tab, and you can actually request a free audit. And I look at credit reports all day long. And what I'm finding is that certain people have a ton of hard inquiries and other people have hardly any. So you might want to be one of those people that has a ton of hard inquiries, or even say 3 to 5 hard inquiries could be really screwing up your FICO score. So we target what's called the low-hanging fruit, which we use this once a year opportunity to also get your hard inquiries taken off as well. So remember, 609-611 letter goes out right before Thanksgiving. Then we have the MOVE letter, the MOV letter, that goes out right before Christmas. And that is when we are demanding for the credit reporting bureaus to show proof of their 30-day investigation as per required by federal law. So what happens after that 30-day process, and now we move into the new year, and some of the stuff might still be on your personal credit? Well, then you need to make a decision on what you want to do next. You might want to send them a very strong, hardcore legal letter saying, basically, this is it, last chance, and you have one more chance to take this off my credit reports, and if you don't, then I'm going to go forth and file a lawsuit against you. And you can actually file your own lawsuit. I strongly recommend you go to neverloseincourt.com, and you can actually be guided through the process of filing your own lawsuit, even in Superior Court, against Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion for not following and maintaining federal law when it comes to showing proof of their investigative process. And you can actually get punitive damages, which could very well be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, because they're damaging your credit, which is disallowing you from the best interest rates, which is disallowing you from decent job opportunities, because yes, they pull your credit for decent jobs. If you don't have a good credit score, you're probably not going to get the job you want, right? Disallowing you from getting and renting a house or an apartment, maybe even buying a house. So they're disallowing you from opportunities by not providing the due diligence and the proper investigative process as required by federal law, okay? So don't shoot the messenger. I'm not the one who created the federal law, but I'm sharing with you as a consumer how you can take advantage of it. And so that would be the last letter that you would do probably in late January. Basically, it's a very strong legal letter. You can actually have ChatGPT do this for you. I strongly urge you to do that, because ChatGPT can create one that's customized just for you. You can use ChatGPT for free, as you know. And ChatGPT, you just basically plug all your information in saying, these are the accounts that never fell off. I did 2 rounds of disputes. They have not furnished me with documentation or proof that they did this investigation. They are in violation of federal law. And please create me a very strong legal letter that also cites not only the federal laws that they're violating, but also relevant case laws that will work in my favor to file a lawsuit against them. And ChatGPT will create a custom letter just for you that you can then send to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion because they are in violation of the law. Now, once they receive that letter, they have another 30 days, which will bring you into February, to either put up or shut up at this point. Like, are they going to take the stuff off or not? And if they don't, then you need to think about what you want to do next as far as filing a lawsuit. Do you want to file a lawsuit yourself? Do you want to use maybe a debt attorney that can help you out? So I do have a couple resources that you can use for really good debt resources for different attorneys that can help you out as far as maybe helping you file this type of lawsuit. It would be a contingency lawsuit, which means that they wouldn't charge you anything up front. They also offer free consultations. And so I recommend that you maybe look into that. But after you do the entire due diligence course, you don't want to just call the attorney's office and see what they could do for you today. You want to go through this whole process during the Holiday Blitz season and actually go through, sending all these letters out and having a paper trail of all these letters before you're contacting an attorney to help you out, okay? So that is what I would recommend that you do. Please take advantage of this once a year opportunity because it's not going to come around till, well, guess not till next year. So we don't want to wait till next year. We want to fix our credit now. And this is the time of year you can do it because of their skeleton crew and because of, the people that are less experienced who are going to be handling most importantly, your handwritten letter and maybe helping you get some stuff off your credit report. Oh, and by the way, I kind of glossed over it, but once your 30-day time frame goes by, so say you get to December 22nd, December 23rd, somewhere in there, ideally December 22nd, and you're about to send the move letter off to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, you might want to the week of Christmas because people are in a different kind of mood when Christmas comes around. As you send off that second letter, that method of verification letter that week, you might also want to ring up Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion and say, hey, listen, I sent in a dispute letter and, some of the stuff didn't fall off. Like, is there anything you could do for me? Because, the investigation was just unclear. I didn't really get the result that, you're saying that you did an investigation. You really didn't show. And you want to be nice. Don't be a jerk. Otherwise, you're going to get nowhere with no one. Okay. But just say, I'm just really confused. Is there anything on your end that you can help me out with? Because I just don't understand what happened. I'm not understanding how this could possibly be. I mean, and you just give them whatever line you want to give them about whatever account. And you would be shocked at what some of them might be able to do because they are in the Christmas season or spirit. Some of them will just be jerks because they don't want to be there, and other ones will be like, oh, well, I'm half sloshed out of my brain because I just dipped into the spiked eggnog, and I will just happily and merrily, as I'm wearing my Santa hat, take all the stuff off for you. You never know who you're going to get. I mean, it's not guaranteed to work, but I would try everything to be able to bolster up your FICO score. So then that way you can enter the new year with a new lease on life, and you can now start to take advantage of opportunities. And then also, one last thing, as you're starting to chisel this negative stuff off, start thinking about some second chance credit cards. At least one second chance credit card you can get between now and the end of the year. So then that way you could start the new year with some new credit. Because if you're not rebuilding at the same time as taking negative accounts off, then you're really going to be shooting yourself in the foot, and that's the last thing you want to do. Okay? So this is exciting. Get your letters together. Handwrite these suckers out for that November, right before Thanksgiving date. And get to crack-a-lacking on these because this is really important. This is your future. This is your credit worthiness. We are a society that's heavily dependent on credit, and you do need to get this stuff squared away if you're going to go into the next year, the new year, with better opportunities than you had this year, okay? So if you have any questions for me directly or you want to participate in my free credit audit, go to school.com/Monica Main and check that out under Classroom. Or you can DM me if you have any really quick questions, not 30 paragraphs about your life story, but very quick questions. I can see if I could try to help you out in any way I can. And also, if you want my best, greatest book that I've written, my last ever credit book that I will be writing, it's called Credit Millionaire 2.0, that you can get on Amazon. It's available on Audible as well as Kindle. And it talks about exactly how to very quickly, using unorthodox secrets, how to fix your credit as fast as possible. And how to start tapping into OPM or other people's money through unsecured business credit, even if you don't have a business yet, because that's the only way you're ever going to start to build wealth for yourself and your family is by tapping into OPM or other people's money. So get that book while you can. This is Monica Main signing off, and I will see you in the next video.